Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outlaws podcast with Kate and Shayla, for professionals who are unlearning the rules of work and life, ditching the shoulds, and building what fits. Today on Outlaws, we're speaking with someone who has taken quite a dramatic left turn away from the law. Michael Kingsbury began his career in the world of corporate transactions, working as an M&A lawyer after graduating with both law and commerce degrees. His path looked like the classic high-performing legal trajectory, but he stepped away from all of it to co-found Uluu, a groundbreaking biotechnology company tackling plastic pollution by creating seaweed-based materials that can replace fossil fuel plastics.
Michael's story sits right at the heart of what this podcast is about. People who question the professional paths they were told to follow and who choose to build something different, something bolder, something with impact. In this conversation, we talk about what made him walk away from his conventional legal career, how he learned to build a company grounded in science, and why he believes seaweed could reshape the materials economy. This is a conversation about risk, reinvention, and the courage to take your skills somewhere unexpected.
So, Michael, welcome to the Outlaws podcast, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So, for those who don't yet know about Uluu, can you tell us a bit about your company?
Can give you the kind of elevator pitch, I suppose. Yeah, Uluu is really developing materials to replace plastic derived from seaweed rather than fossil fuels. And we kind of do three good things for the world. So firstly, we tackle plastic pollution. And that's because our materials are natural. They're actually produced by microorganisms through fermentation. So it's kind of like brewing beer, but we're brewing an alternative to plastic.
Yep.
And these materials have this really unique superpower that whilst they're natural and biodegradable, they really behave like plastic during use. So they're strong, they're durable, they're waterproof. You know, you can use them on existing plastic manufacturing equipment so that they're plug and play, no retrofitting or retooling. So it's a direct substitute. But of course, at end of life, because nature built them, nature understands them, nature can break them back down again. I guess the second benefit is mitigating climate change. And that's because rather than using fossil fuels or hydrocarbons as a feedstock, all materials or all polymers, plastic requires a carbon feedstock of some kind, like the backbone of polymers. We use seaweed, which we believe is the most regenerative, scalable, and affordable feedstock of the future. Rather than emitting carbon, seaweed can actually absorb a significant amount of carbon from the environment, so much so that we have this potential to offset more carbon than we emit through our production process. And I suppose the final benefit is related to that in that, beyond just carbon, we have some huge issues in our world's oceans related to fertilizers and runoff and kind of nutrient pollution. Seaweed is an awesome marine crop that can actually help clean up our oceans, and it uses those nutrients to grow. So it can remove things like excess nitrogen and phosphorus from the water and help to kind of restore ocean health. So it's a marine crop that we want more of in the world, and we're incentivizing the scale of seaweed farming through Uluu. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. And then, so it's no surprise that Uluu was recently awarded a very significant amount of funding to move to the next stage and scale the production of the plastics up.
Yeah. So, currently we operate out of Waterman's Bay, where we have a test facility. So to date, we've, existed, or we're about 5 years old now, just coming up on 5 years. We have a team of around 25 people based here in Perth. And I guess in addition to kind of process optimization and kind of product development, our core focus has really been on building and operating a test facility to produce our materials. They're actually called PHAs for product development and customer trials. And so to date, we've really been able to work kind of in limited volumes with customers to give them a taste of what our materials are capable of and do some kind of capsule editions and things like that in the market.
And I saw the pajamas, the Papinel, I think they're called. They had the Uluu buttons on them.
Yeah, so that's a good example. So one of the markets we're really excited about is fashion. And currently with limited volumes with this current plant, buttons are a kind of nice kind of example of, buttons today are made of typically plastic, and they're small, but also significant, meaningful, more symbolic product to substitute that plastic with our materials. Yeah, but right now, our focus, we've raised some money, and now the focus is to scale that production, just to move from smaller kind of production runs to tons of material where we can start to deliver meaningful volumes to customers and then lock in, those longer term offtake agreements, which is so important to then go and raise ideally project finance or debt finance to go and build a commercial scale plant, which can actually become profitable and cash flow positive.
Tell me about the name Uluu. What does it mean? Something?
Yeah, we came up with the name Uluu back in 2021 or late 2020. We had a different name at the time, and we were just looking for something that was kind of succinct and distinctive and unique. I don't know how Uluu came about, but it sounds quite natural and just reminded me and Julia, my co-founder, of the ocean and kind of nature. And I guess from a practical point of view, it was when you're going to set up a business, like looking at trademarks and domain names and all those different things. Uluu is kind of free, so when you type into Google Uluu, we're kind of the first thing that comes up, and we allow is try and make a meaning around Uluu as we scale and grow a business. So that it takes on its own kind of meaning.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, look, I just absolutely love the whole idea. I can't even tell you. When I hadn't heard of Uluu, and when Kate told me about it, I then started having a look, and I just think it's absolutely incredible. So congratulations on the work that you've done so far.
Yeah.
I really hope that it continues on the trajectory that it's been running on, because I think the world desperately needs things like this.
Right. And the potential of what you're producing to change things is immense, right? And it's exciting to see it from, as I said, I remember talking to you in the very early days. We were both involved in this legal app creation unit that I ran in my former position. And I remember talking to you about that in the very early days and thinking, such an innovative idea. And it's so exciting to have followed it along in these 5 years and just see what it's become. It's pretty extraordinary. Yeah,
it's cool. Yeah, lots of hard work to go, but we're really kind of working hard to make it happen. And if it does, then it has this real, I guess, globally significant kind of potential. So
So Kate taught you in law school. Tell us why you decided to study law and then what happened after your law degree.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the reasons for studying law, I guess, is probably like a lot of people, like when they're finishing school, they don't really know what to do. And
this doesn't sound familiar at all.
So many. I'm gonna do I'm going to do a reel or something for Instagram and LinkedIn that's like, the reason why people studied law, and then like send it around to schools, which is just, when I left school, I was like, oh, well, I might as well do that.
Couldn't think of anything else to do.
Yeah, I guess it's like, if I'm going to be honest, it was really, I guess like my parents and their friends thought it was a good profession to get into alongside medicine or something similar.
Yeah. I think law is sometimes the profession for people who want a profession but don't like blood. I reckon.
Yeah, that sounds about right. No, so I guess like, I had a few different things I was quite interested in. I originally applied for, I was going to do law and engineering, and then ended up swapping to commerce at the last minute. So I quite like, business, I guess, economics, commerce, and I love science as well. And so that's why I tried, decided to do engineering, but ended up, coupling that with law, I guess, just from thinking it was a good idea to do, but not really having like a real reason for that necessarily. But I'm really glad that I did it. I think, I think it's hard to kind of appreciate at the time, I suppose, but it really did kind of build in a way of kind of solving problems and thinking about things and kind of that logical process. Being able to do lots of different stuff, interpret lots of information and kind of distill it down and kind of draw conclusions from that and things like that. So I think like in terms of choosing law and going down that pathway, in retrospect, I'm really glad that I did do that. Yeah, so I finished my law degree back in 2014 or something. I ended up working so I took a part-time at Minderoo, working in their walk-free team, which was all about building systems and kind of data analytics process to understand the causes and I guess the risk of modern slavery in global supply chains, and then how to kind of work with businesses to go and try and remediate that risk. And I also was working for a startup at the time, a med tech startup, which was building algorithms to use MRI imaging in a smarter way to identify kind of the biomarkers for chronic diseases. That was called MagnaPath. So I was kind of doing these two things in my time off, and then also kind of went to the US with them and went around Silicon Valley, and I was really interested in kind of different ideas and things. And at the same time, I had a deferred position from Cause, so I was at the end of that year, I decided that I think I want to try being a lawyer for a little bit, and I was working in the M&A team at Cause. That was one of the best teams I've been a part of, with Rob Franklin, who was my partner there, Ollie Carrick and some others. And I just learned a lot from more on the, I guess, soft skills and professional skills, I guess, about how to present information clearly and concisely, and more of that corporate, I guess.
It's interesting to me that you described that first year as a year off when it clearly wasn't a year off.
I think it was a year of freedom to just go and try lots of different things.
Yeah, right. I love that.
Yeah. And I was kind of doing that, like a bit of remote work. So it was kind of, I could work off my laptop, and I was traveling with the friends who were going through Europe and the US and things. And
But it's interesting to me that you're talking about startups and following these interests, and that's actually, in fact, what you've ended up moving into anyway. So clearly that kind of, that creative or that sort of innovation that sort of drives you in this particular role was something that you had.
Yeah, I think I wanted to build things, I guess. I really like understanding different technologies and the role that they can play in the world, and building things from scratch, and seeing and that idea of generating some kind of impact. And I really like going through that process that everyone does, like all of the different things that you could want to do. And I think it was something to do with using technology for good and impact that I really wanted to do. But I also wanted to learn some useful skills along the way as well. And I thought working with Cause and in law for a period of time, and also being open to not kind of deciding which way to go, but I thought trying that out would also be like a valuable life experience, and kind of from a professional development point of view.
And so Cause for a while, and then I think you moved somewhere else, didn't you? From
yeah. So I ended up getting an opportunity came up to work with BHP in their strategy and innovation team. And I thought that was like kind of again, just like a different experience, and try something else and learn about what it's like to work in a massive company like that, which was pretty eye-opening just to see how these big organizations work.
So that was
a good learning experience.
Wasn't a legal role?
No, that was really commercial role. And
how long were you there? And did you enjoy it?
Just over a year or so. It was all right. I enjoyed it it was an interesting experience. And I did some interesting work on how they could basically, BHP had, a large budget to deploy to use different technologies to become more efficient, from robotics to artificial intelligence and lots of different things. And so it was looking at a strategic review of what are the different areas that they would like to play in, where would they like to buy technologies off the shelf, where would they want to partner to develop technologies to implement in their business, where do they want to just do that from scratch and kind of own all the IP associated with that, and then really kind of prioritizing those different investment opportunities and where they want to build kind of how do they want to build their longer term competitive advantages through new technologies. So it was quite cool. It was a big problem solving, kind of more of a strategic kind of theoretical exercise. But it was also crazy working in a company that has, lots of different people, some of which are doing different things, some of which are doing the same thing across different teams. And it's quite, I don't know if it was something I wanted to do for the rest of my life, but it was a pretty good experience to understand how these businesses operate and then contrast that to working with in a small team with an emerging company that has a lot of kind of agility and pace to make different decisions and move quickly.
Yeah. But so you obviously made a choice at that point when you went to BHP to leave the legal and to go to that sort of strategy, commercial side of things. What were you thinking at that point? How long after you started at Cause? How long did you stay at Cause for when you made that decision?
It was like 4 years, I think, something like that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
quite a long time. So that must have been a real shift, was it, to then go, I'm going to stop doing law and do something else?
I didn't find it to be.
Hmm. Yeah, right.
At Cause as well, like I had an awesome team, and half of my time was kind of spent on similar things, like understanding the way that technology can be applied. And this is where legal aptitude and that kind of course at
Mm,
UWA came into play. How can technology be used to improve the way law firms operate and deliver services to
okay.
their clients? Some of my time was looking at, for instance, smart contracts. That was like when blockchain and all those distributed ledger technologies were becoming quite interesting. And then
Mm,
also looking at things like natural language processing and neural networks to interpret contracts and
mm,
understand how you can predict what a negotiated outcome might look like for a contract and save all the time of actually doing that kind of back and forth negotiation. So I was, doing like lots of cool stuff that, so I was like half M&A lawyer, half looking at new technologies and
Yeah.
how we could use them. And I think then moving to, more of a pure strategy kind of commercial role was, I don't know, it's all kind of logic and problem solving at the end of the day.
mm,
And so it didn't feel like a major shift, like, or too
That's
scary, I
great.
guess.
And so then how did Uluu come about?
Yeah, I guess like I wanted to I wanted to do something different. And I guess like, if I'm really honest, like as well, BHP, like I could earn a little bit more money and sort of save a bit of money that would give me, again, some freedom to kind of find something that I really cared about doing without so much stress, and I could kind of buy myself some time to do that. And then met Julia, who's my co-founder. She was introduced to us by a mutual colleague at Minderoo. So she had worked there at a different time to me. She's an ocean scientist, pretty amazing person. She was working with Minderoo and with Andrew Forrest on looking at new businesses and technologies to mitigate plastic pollution. And she then kind of, I guess, having a pretty good sense of what was out there. She wanted to go and start a company which was using seaweed as an alternative to fossil fuels to produce PHAs as an alternative to plastic. And she was looking for a co-founder, and then we got introduced. We had a coffee and kind of hit it off. And then this was back in early 2020, we spent a year kind of building out this blueprint of what Uluu would look like and testing this idea with material scientists, with seaweed scientists, building economic models to go and understand whether it made sense from a techno-economic point of view. Is it a business that can scale? Can it scale profitably? How much seaweed do we need? What are the sort of pricing points and costs that we could reasonably achieve? And does it make sense? Is it something that we want to kind of dedicate our lives to?
Right.
So that was kind of the process. And then we got to
Yep.
the end of 2020 and thought, following all of this work, built a pitch deck, I guess, presented, the business, why we think we're doing something unique that no one else can do, and what's our plan. And we're able to raise some money off the back of that to kind of get into the lab and prove that it was technically feasible.
Great. So exciting.
It's amazing, isn't it? And in fact, I think that's when I remember talking to you about it in that year, because I think you were involved in the app creation unit still,
Yeah.
legal aptitude, as we called it. And I remember talking to you about that. That was a year where you were really focused on looking into the viability of this.
Yeah.
And it's a big leap, isn't it? Like you said, I mean, obviously you had some ideas about what sort of things you wanted to do in life, about the tech, and that even if you didn't quite know what it was going to be, it sounds as though when you look back at it, it's like, oh, everything you did actually does sort of present a pathway to creating something, to being part of a startup.
Well, I just think that you can see that path from quite
Emerging.
early on, obviously. You went and did law, maybe because everyone thought that you should, which is very common. But then you had that year off, as you describe it, where actually you explored things which got pretty close to where you are now in some ways. It was very much in that innovation space. And I know Minderoo does a lot of work in oceans as well, doesn't it? So I don't know if you had any involvement in that work while you were there, but it seems like you were pretty clear, I guess, maybe reasonably early, even though it might have not been clear in your mind, or certainly that the path was kind of finding its way to where you are now.
Because I think too, sometimes you actually take a step towards what's interesting, and
Mm.
then ultimately, it's very hard to see more than about 1 or 2 steps ahead, I think, because you don't ever know how things are going to work out. But I think when you look back, that's when you can see a fairly clear path emerging. It's interesting to me too that you said that one of your original plans was to study law and engineering, because
Yeah.
engineering is creating things and building things. And so even though you didn't ultimately go down that path for your degree, it's kind of what you've ended up doing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I've just tried to um, follow what I find interesting at the
Right.
same time, trying to mix that with things that are, building that professional kind of skill set in some way, so I can actually have a reasonable chance at making it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, engineering is building things. I don't know. I always love physics and kind of chemistry and calculus and all that sort of stuff. But
It sounds like you should have done a science degree.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, but a science degree would have been. But
I don't
you said,
regret what I did at all. Like, I think it was definitely the best mix of
Yeah.
yeah,
It's just funny to me how a lot of lawyers say, well, I didn't like blood, so I couldn't go into medicine. And I didn't like maths, so it had to be law. And in fact, but you are the rare lawyer who seems to have some sort of mathematical interest as well and ability.
yeah, yeah. All of the lawyers that I know say, even when you go out for dinner and you've got to divide up the bill, it's like, I'm a lawyer. No, I don't
Mm.
divide bills. It's like I don't do maths. So you talked about that you feel like it was great to do a law degree, and also that you learn a lot of useful skills when you are at cause and doing that work.
definitely,
Presumably there's been a whole heap of scary moments in startups, or moments at least where you were filled with doubt and wondering, are you going down the right path? What kind of skills do you think have been useful for you in the work that you learnt when you were working as a lawyer to carry over into startup world?
good question. I think there's lots of stuff. Being able to, I mean, I don't know if I'm good at this or not, but I think like it's like some of the skills that I think helped were like, firstly, just being able to write clearly, I think,
Mm.
and in a succinct kind of way that you can convey your ideas simply.
Yeah.
That's definitely a big one. I think presenting those things, like, so in a way that's actionable to whether that's your team or to investors or whatever it might be. And I guess building that kind of getting people to kind of buy into your idea. I think being able to write and present your ideas clearly and in a hopefully an engaging way is really important. I think working under pressure and working with like tight deadlines and all those sorts of
Right.
things, and just having like lots of information to kind of go and figure out what the solution should be, and then be able to prioritize your work and just think through things in a structured kind of manner, I think is important, because like when you're trying to build something yourself, you're kind of on your own, so you have to kind of structure your thinking and what you're going to do, and how you're going to deliver value or de-risk your business in a
Right.
efficient way.
Yeah.
And then I think working with people, I don't know, Rob and the M&A team I was working with were really sort of half like corporate lawyers, but also good project managers, and
Yeah.
being able to kind of delegate responsibility between the different parties that were involved in the transaction and have good, clear timelines and all those different things, I think was like really good project management skills, was quite good to be a part of. So yeah, lots of stuff like that, I guess.
Do you still use your legal skills in your role at Uluu?
Yeah, a lot, weirdly, yeah. Yeah, so in different ways. So initially when we were starting Uluu, it was good because like we could save a lot of money just like setting up the company and
Mm.
constitution and shareholders agreement, all of that
Yeah.
stuff, right? Raising capital was good. I think being able to structure agreements with customers or partners and put together a quick term sheet and kind of get on the same page
Yeah.
without kind of being too pedantic about things, that you
Sure.
sort of know the realities of
Mm.
what's important legally and what's not that important. So yeah, I thought that was been quite helpful. So
Mm.
rather than spending weeks or whatever it might be sending things out to lawyers to scope and then to come back with something and then keep redrafting, you could do it in an afternoon and just get something back to whoever you're working with quickly and kind of keep that
Yeah.
momentum up. I think that's really valuable.
Mm.
Yeah, lots of stuff like that.
Yeah.
just understanding like where if you're working with another party and they're not kind of meeting their obligations under a contract or taking advantage of you in some way, being able to really know your kind of position and know what's fair, what's not, and how to kind of defend that a little bit.
Yeah. And were there, I mean, becoming a co-CEO or a founder of a startup is obviously a big thing. And there were presumably also a whole heap of things that you didn't know how to do. How'd you find that, kind of, if you've never run a company before, there's a steep learning curve, right? Were there moments where you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing here?
Yeah, all the time. Still, yeah. Yeah. It's a roller coaster in that sense, like to kind of lots of
Do you
people
love
say
that though? Do you love that sort
it's
of
never
that
boring for
challenge?
sure. Yeah. Every day is really eventful. Lots of stuff happening. And when you're starting the business as well, it's kind of in the space of a week or a month, it's quite amazing to see what you're capable of when you're bringing something into fruition a little bit, and what sort of traction you can generate. It's quite cool to see the pace at which you can sort of generate traction, whether that's bringing a new partner on board, hiring people, whatever it might be. Like there's just the things that you can get done which are real and tangible is quite cool to see in the space of a few days, weeks, months, whatever. But yeah, then there's lots of like new skills and kind of things that I've had to learn along the way and still learning, but like building a team and hiring people and kind of motivating the team and setting direction and strategy and kind of getting people to buy into that and then when things don't work out with staff or partners, or how do you go about that as well? There's a lot of kind of just pretty emotionally taxing at times, like decisions that you have to make with very limited information as well. So you kind of have to go a little bit, depending on what it is, with your gut or try and gather data to make the best decision. It's
I think that's great for people to hear who are thinking about making career moves, because often I think we have to know everything before we shift. I don't know enough about that to move into that kind of sphere. But I think what you've done is just gone, well, I know enough about that and the rest I'll just figure out as I go along and surround myself with the right people. And so I think that's an inspiring thing to hear for people and encouraging that you might not know everything about everything, but actually just give it a crack, right? If it feels right.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing is having a good co-founder, someone that's willing to put in the same level of energy and kind of obsession and kind of commitment to that idea and to making it work is really important. Like I've had, other, I guess, like businesses or ideas and had people that we were kind of going to start things with in the past, but you end up figuring out pretty quickly that someone's not as like invested in that as you are, and it's going to be a very hard road if you go down that way. So I think having someone like Julia who just just like kind of lives and breathes what we're doing is really important, and you can kind of brings you a lot of energy to kind of push through hard times as well, and have someone to kind of share that process with and talk through the difficult things and decisions. And then I think the other thing is, as you said, like it's cool to see people kind of getting behind you and see that momentum, I guess. It's kind of amazing where early on we had lots of, well, we still do, but like lots of problems and things that you're like, how the hell are we going to solve that? And then bringing on board different people with different experience and skills and like seeing solutions to things that you never thought were possible because of just the diversity of those people and kind of different ways of thinking at a problem. It was really cool. So that's really important, just getting good people around you.
Yeah. Well, Kate and I get that a bit about the podcast when we hear people or people tell us that something's resonated with them about the podcast. And so we get that feeling a little bit that you just talked about then, is that kind of that momentum. It's so lovely when you see something that you're creating to resonate with other people. It's great. We love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool.
So, Michael, actually I have two questions, but the one I really want to ask is, so if you imagined your younger self sitting across from you now, I know you're still pretty young actually, but let's halve it. What would surprise young Michael most, do you think, about the life that you're living now? if anything?
It's a good question. I don't know if it's very exciting to say. So edit
It's
this bit
okay.
out.
You can say whatever you want.
Say what you want.
Yeah.
If you change your mind and wish you hadn't said it, then you just tell us and we'll edit it out.
Mm.
Yeah, I think like generally I'm probably doing what I would have thought I would maybe end up doing.
Mm.
And maybe the pathway to getting there, maybe it surprised me, maybe it wouldn't, I'm not sure. But it's yeah, I think I'm doing what I would like to be doing, or at least giving it a crack. And that's probably doing something with, using technology and to try to generate something meaningful in the world in some way. Whether that's starting my own business, like such as Uluu, where it was like, tackling plastic pollution, and that would surprise me maybe. I don't know if I necessarily saw myself doing this specifically, but I think, but yeah, it's cool. I'm doing something that is probably more aligned with what I believe in and what I care about than I thought was kind of available
Right. Yeah. Right.
as a job. So like, I love the ocean. I love like surfing and swimming, and I love nature, and even from that perspective, it was kind of amazing that we're using seaweed and get to travel to different amazing places that are on the coast, like Indonesia or wherever. And so I think, yeah, being close to the ocean, in terms of a business that's trying to reduce plastic pollution and kind of restore ocean health from that point of view is also quite a nice surprise. I didn't kind of see that one coming.
Right. Would you have any advice for, again, young Michael or anyone who's sort of listening? Is there any wisdom you would have to impart?
Well, for anyone that's listening to this podcast and thinking, might be inspired by your story, or thinking that they're in a job at the moment that they're not particularly happy with and they're not quite sure how to make the move, what might be some advice that you'd give them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of like cliche one is just do what you find interesting and what you enjoy, and but then I think do that in a pragmatic way, or hopefully kind of have a bit of a plan in place to spend some time learning about the different areas that you could, or for me it was like, what are the different business ideas or technologies that I find interesting, and what do I think has potential, and then I think like spending that time at BHP was great to learn, but also to make a little bit of money that I could afford to take time off to then go and do my own due diligence on this business idea, and kind of de-risk that to a point where I thought now it makes sense to really dedicate that kind of my life to that. It's like it requires so much commitment, and it's intense. Like it's 7 days a week. It's not it's not something you can do kind of like half-heartedly.
But I'm guessing too that you talk about de-risking, and I think that's such a good word, because it does then give people a bit more courage. If you're minimising your risks, you've got a bit more courage to experiment with things. But I'm guessing too that, I mean, you saved up that money, like you said, you're working at BHP and you wanted to give yourself that buffer. But building up that buffer would not have been without some sacrifice as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It would be very tempting if you're on a great salary just to sort of up your expenses. What's that called? Lifestyle inflation.
Yeah.
You've had a bit of a plan. You wanted the freedom to be able to pivot into different things. And so putting that money away rather than spending it, basically. So
yeah,
not without sacrifices, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like there was a point where I think house prices were incredibly low. I was like, oh, now's an awesome time to go and buy a house and take on a loan to go and do that. But that would have kind of, then reduced some flexibility to go and go overseas and do something. Maybe it was in the US or Europe or whatever it might have been. So there, were some kind of like considered decisions like that where I was like, no, I want to, have a bit of flexibility to just, if I want to pack my bag tomorrow and I find something interesting to do, then I can just do that. So I was living living with very little kind of like overhead, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's good though, because it's again good for people to hear, because choices, right? You can't have everything all of the time, and so you've got to decide what's important to you at any one moment. And you've gone with the passion really about, you believe in this so much that you're all in on on this, which is great, and I think clearly shows when you're talking about it. What's the 5-year plan for Uluu? Where do you want to be in 5 years?
Yeah. So right now our focus is on scaling up the test facility up to a demonstration plant.
Mm.
So the next 18 months is really demonstrating our ability to operate at a larger scale, still pre-commercial, but giving us enough volume to lock in long-term offtake agreements with our customers, where we have that contracted future revenue to go and underwrite project financing, which can be used to go and build a large commercial facility where we become profitable and can start to really deliver, thousands of tons of Uluu into the world. And so I think in 5 years to have a large commercial plant online where Uluu is being used primarily, it's going to be in cosmetics and fashion, and where people can see it kind of like in the real world and being part of the products that they buy. I think that would be a super cool outcome.
Yeah. That's great. Well, look, best of luck with that. I'll be certainly following along with great interest, I can tell you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been
Yeah.
really interesting, great chat, and so good to hear the story.
And congratulations on the success of Uluu for coming up to a 5-year anniversary. What an incredible 5 years it's been. And so let's hope that, it goes from success to success. I have no doubt it will.
Thank you very much. No, thanks for having me on the podcast.
Well, that was so interesting. I'm so inspired by that work, and I also just love it when I hear about people doing great things for the environment.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, right. It's the goal for Uluu is not let's just make a lot of money.
Yeah.
The goal is let's see if we can do our bit to save the planet. It's extraordinary and such a important development, but it's so exciting to see what you can do, right?
Yeah.
You-
I love to hear about, maybe he hasn't thought about it in this way, but it feels to me like he has been on that path for quite some time. He was interested in engineering and he had that science. And, even though he went down a particular sort of formal path of law, he was still really interested in those things. And I've decided that I am renaming gap years to curiosity years, because I feel like gap years get a bit of a negative connotation, and like this idea where we're taking, I don't know, kind of swanning around the world or doing waste of time stuff, which I don't think is true. And it certainly wasn't true for him, because even though he described it as a year off, actually it was just a year of curiosity. He was just following things he was interested in, which has ended up taking him down this path.
I'm also interested too in, and this came up when we spoke to Henry Nelson Case as well. He's become a very significant content creator, but he was talking about that this is the sort of thing he used to do when he was younger anyway.
Yeah.
He liked creating and he liked that medium. And then when we were speaking to Michael, and I sort of asked him whether his younger self would be surprised, he was like, well, probably not, because this was always the sort of thing, building something or creating something. There was always an interest there. And that's been a bit of a through line. Sometimes I think, we've said this before, when you're trying to find that purpose or passion or whatever it is, sometimes looking back to the things that we've been interested in when we were younger and not necessarily as constrained by financial, real world type issues, that's often a really big clue as to the sort of things that are where we're going to find those, that purpose or that unique combination of interest and aptitude where we can make that contribution.
And I think another thing that was quite similar in Henry's story was that probably both Henry and Michael are doing jobs that no one would have imagined would be jobs 10 years ago. Certainly Henry, the idea of maybe being able to make money as a legal content creator wasn't something that anyone thought was going to be a job. And so, Uluu is a creation, so no one knew that was going to be a job either. But so I think great stories from millennials where they're just imagining up new things, new careers.
Yeah. And also too that concept, I know that for Michael, he'd tried a number of different things, and yet it was being introduced to his co-creator, Dr. Julia Reiser. And they had mutual friends, or they both worked at Minderoo at one point, and that the serendipity of that introduction and that we can't always plan these things out. I think Michael
No.
said that when he always knew he wanted to create something, the fact that it's turning seaweed into a plastic a substitute was not on his wavelength, but
Yeah.
you don't even always know where those great opportunities are going to come from.
No. And again, I think that those great opportunities came because he was hanging around in spaces that he was interested in, right?
Yep, right.
So you got to put yourself out there in those spaces you're interested in. Otherwise,
Mm.
you don't really know what's going to come up. So,
Mm.
yeah, great story. Thank you so much to Michael for joining us today. And as usual, Outlaws, please leave us a review if you've liked this episode. If you've got ideas for other episodes or great outlaw stories that we might not know about, please share them with us. Drop us an email at contact@outlawspodcast.com. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Shayla. See
Have
you
a
next
great
week.
week.
You too. Bye.